We'll call this meeting to order for Thursday, July 28, 2022. The KDA, will you help me open with the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item is, the KDA, is to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Sky.
Second.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Our next item is to approve the July 12, 2022 meeting minutes.
I'll move.
Oh, go ahead. Wait, got it. I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik. Thank you, Commissioner Skoye. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Next up is new business. Item A, to consider Minnesota Department of Transportation's appraisal report for the purchase of land within the North Home Industrial Site. And we have Nathan here and also Mark Art for real estate specialist for MNDOT.
Yep.
Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. So in your packet, actually, let me back up a second. So as you'll recall, in the last year or so, we've been in discussions with MnDOT as they've kind of been eyeing up a portion of the North Home Industrial Site to potentially site a new maintenance truck shop there. So we've kind of been, it's been a process, but we're finally to the point now where they have completed a appraisal report to present to us, and you have that in your packet. They actually are breaking this out into two separate parcels. It's essentially the same chunk of land, but it's two separate parcels. One is a smaller, like 1.13 acre parcel that they already have. They already encumber it by easement for State Highway 1, but they'd like to buy that in this process to get the fee title for that small little parcel. And then the remaining parcel that's there is the bigger 18.94 acre chunk that's in the appraisal report. So the appraisal report's pretty lengthy, but to kind of just condense it down and to summarize it, they were able to use comps outside of the county, actually in the Bemidji area along this Highway 71 corridor. So I think those comps are in our favor. County assessors actually reviewed the appraisal report too, and he kind of concludes with that assessment. So,
And to me, that is just amazing. Did anyone read all of this? You did, I'm
well,
sure.
I went through it.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Unbelievable. Only the government.
Yeah. So basically for the two parcels, roughly a little over 20 acres in total, their offer is $115,000. So I guess what we're looking for today is, wanted the KDA board to see those appraisals, and then if the board wishes to, then the next step is we would have to hold a public hearing on that potential sale. We have to obviously notice that in the local paper and whatnot. So.
You need a motion? I'll move on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Skoye.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik. Any discussion?
We put that thing together years ago and had a business that was, and it failed immediately almost for one reason or another, and then it's been kind of up in the air ever since.
Yeah.
But this seems to be a good use.
Yeah, and I think Dave helped. He dug back in the records, and we have a figure of what the county has invested in that property as a whole. So it's basically 40 acres. MnDOT's looking to acquire about half of it. So the offer that they're giving us on this, or what the appraisal shows it's worth, is more than covers half of our costs into that site, so.
Wayne, is Northholm City Council, are they aware of?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I know at a couple of meetings, the mayor was out there. I haven't been to the council meeting, but yeah, they've.
Just so they know.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other discussion or questions?
Actually, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. So do we set the time for the public hearing?
Yeah, we'll need to set the date, and that can be, I guess, could be done in the next item there. We could set, but we are going to need to set the time for that public hearing too, because that'll have to be included in the public notice.
Anything further?
No.
We have a first and a second to consider the appraisal report. If there is another discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you.
Actually, Wade, on that question, I was at a meeting with the progressive group, and there was, questions on there, and, it's explained that that's what you're doing, and they seem to be happy with it.
Good. Thanks, Wayne.
All right. Okay, so then the next item would be to consider adding 2 KDA meetings. One of them being August 23rd, 2022, perhaps at 8:30 prior to the 9:30 board meeting. And the other, and that would be a public hearing. And then the next would be Tuesday, September, is that 13th? To take action after the public hearing.
So the first one will be the same as our next board meeting?
The 23rd, I guess I'm not sure when they're meeting.
Yeah.
I think that's the
Yes, and that would be the
Isn't it?
second board meeting
Okay.
in August.
So I can make a comment on that. So on the August 23rd meeting, the public hearing, the KDA board would hold the hearing, obviously, and the board can make a decision
the same day.
immediately following the hearing. It's just that we would need that September 13th meeting to make it of record within 30 days of the hearing, the decision. So
Okay.
that's following the statute of, so basically this property sale, because it is KDA, it's an economic development authority that owns it. There's a specific statute that has to be followed for the sale of the property. So that's what essentially we would need that September 13th meeting for, is if the KDA board wants to move forward and approve the sale, the meeting minutes of that public hearing and that decision would just have to be approved on September 13th.
Any objections to the public meeting being at 8:30 on the 23rd? Is that okay?
Yep. Whatever works.
And the Tuesday, September 13th, would that be our first meeting of September then?
Yes.
And then we could do that prior to, or same time as the board for that? Okay. I will accept a motion for those two dates and times for the KDA.
I'll move.
Thank you, Commissioner Stoy.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is public comment. Do we have anyone here or online for public comment? No public comment. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Thank you, Commissioner Stoy.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik. All those in favor of adjourn say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. We'll begin with approval of the agenda, and there are additions that go with it.
I'll move the approval of the agenda with the additions
Okay,
included.
we've got a motion
Second, Mr. Chair.
and a second to approve with the additions. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, call a question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries unanimously. And we've got the minutes from July 12th, regular meeting.
I'll move the minutes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we've got a motion, Jason,
I'll second.
and a second. Any questions on those? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to the ratifications here. And you've got those with your additions.
Yes. Have a bit of a list here today.
I see that.
The first one to start off with is I'm seeking approval for the employment separation of our payroll and benefit coordinator, Emily Knabel, and that will be effective on August 24th.
Mr. President, if I may, Mr. Chair, do you want to finish doing the board motion for ratifying the claims, or do you want to move right into human resources?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We were going to do those first.
Yeah, if we
yeah.
could, that'd be great.
Oh,
So,
You said that she's a...
Can we hold
she's
you up?
quitting or terminating?
okay.
yep.
Oh, goodness.
So I will.
Then we'll pull you right back. Okay, now we're going to do the additions first today. Should we do the human resource first?
Let's do ratify the claims if we could.
Okay.
If I may, and
Yep.
if I could just explain to the rest of the board, the
Yep.
reason that we're ratifying the claims versus approving them is because there were some claims that needed to be paid on Tuesday. So we did go ahead and run all those claims. So today we're asking you to ratify versus approve.
And can we do all three? In one?
Certainly can. Do all in one motion.
I'll move, Mr. Chair, to ratify items under financial addition, items A, B, and C.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
We've got a second by Wayne. Any questions or comments on these? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Then on to the human resource business. Might as well take that too, okay?
All right, so, as I mentioned, the first one to start off with is the, to approve the employment separation of our payroll and benefit coordinator, Emily Knabel, with an effective date of August 24th. We'll also need authorization to fill the vacant position within the assigned wage scale.
All right.
You want individually? Okay. Oh,
We can do all of these too, can we? In one?
This one we'll want to do individual
Okay.
motions.
All right,
Okay.
so we'll have to have a motion.
Okay, I'll move.
Motion by Wayne,
Second, Mr. Chair.
second by Jason. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, so the next four topics I have here is regarding ratifying our contracts for the two LELS groups as well as our two Afscme groups. So the first one I have is to approve and execute the LEL Local 103 Deputies Collective Bargaining Agreement. It's a 3-year contract starting January 1 of this year, ending December 31st of 2024, as recommended by the County Negotiating Committee. We'll also need authorization for the Administration Director to make the appropriate budget adjustments and fund transfers. I can provide you a summary of the changes to the contract. It is in your packets, but if you would like me to say it for the record, I certainly can. So the changes for this group includes modifying Article 3, Section 3 to include the verbiage of notwithstanding the foregoing arbitrator selection in a discipline-related grievance, arbitration shall be governed by applicable law. That's because there had been a recent change in their arbitration process, so we had that reflected in the contract. Updating Article 4, Sections 1 through 5 to implement and reflect the PACE wage study and the step increases to take place on January 1 of each year in lieu of our current system, which takes place on the employee's anniversary. So everyone will move to January 1 for step increases. This will also increase the shift differential to 90 cents per hour in 2022 and increase that to $1 per hour in 2023 and 2024. Article 10, Section 2, we're adding to the Part D to allow them to take the option of taking 12 hours of vacation on the actual holiday and receive 8 hours of holiday pay. They have a couple different ways that they can execute their holiday pay since they are on a 12-hour shift. So they wanted to include this as a third option. Article 11, Section 8, it's adding another tier to the sick leave severance payout schedule for 65% of their unused accrued sick leave for 35 years of service. This was something that was implemented last year with most of our groups, but now we're getting it put into the contracts as well. Article 12, Section 1, it's increasing the group life insurance benefit from $10,000 to a $30,000 plan for full-time employees. Article 12, Section 2, this is a big one. We modified the county contributions for health insurance. So in 2022, we're using our current cap rates that we have had established for quite some time. But effective January 1 of 2023, we're going to start going to a percentage-based cap. So for our common family plan, that would be contributed 90% by the county, 10% by the employee. And the HSA or VIVA compatible plans would be at a 95-5 split. Then the single plans would still operate similarly to what we're doing today. The common single would be paid at 100%. If they opt for one of the HSA or VIVA plans, the difference in those premiums would go into an HSA or VIVA account. Article 15, Section 5, we're modifying language to reflect this is a practice that they've been applying. However, we wanted to have it put in the contract for consistency purposes. So it will include, in the event of a permanent vacancy, departmental seniority shall prevail in the selection of shifts or shift work. In the event of a temporary vacancy, the senior deputy working on the shift in which the vacancy occurs shall have the option to fill the vacancy when practicable. Temporary vacancy shall be defined as a leave of absence, administrative leave, sick leave, vacation, or other temporary reason in which a vacancy occurs. Article 15, Section 8, we're adding this section to include overtime work will be distributed as equally as practicable with consideration given to seniority. Again, it's something that they've been practicing, however, they just wanted the language included in the contract. Article 18, Section 3, we are including significant other aunt and uncle to the list of immediate family members. This took place last year as well with the contracts that we did negotiate. We did notify that it would have been awarded to any other individuals that did not have this contract language, but again, looking to clean it up for consistency purposes. But this group will be eliminating the 2 additional days of funeral leave for those that have to travel over 300 miles, okay? Article 23, Section 1, we're increasing uniform allowance from $60 to $75 per month, and we're modifying that due date to be November 1, from November 1 to pushing it back to December 1 instead. This was another kind of topic that we wanted to address and get cleaned up in Article 24, Section 1. We wanted to add the section to require employees to complete training for license requirements when on duty, if possible, or they need to obtain sheriff approval to complete such trainings on a scheduled day off, which they would be compensated at the overtime rate. Article 24, Section 2, we're modifying the section to clarify the section when an employee is required by the sheriff to attend classes in law enforcement outside of the county on a regular scheduled workday. The employee will be compensated at the regular rate of pay, but if it's held on their scheduled day off, training and travel shall be paid at the overtime rate. Article 24, Section 3, modify the section. Currently it says that we'll pay up to 90% of the post-licensing fees, but we modified it to say that we'll pay for the post-licensing fees, as they have made it very clear that there has not been an increase in those fees in a significant amount of time. Also modifying the Article 27, Section 1 to reflect a 3-year term, as I mentioned before, effective January 1 of this year through December 31st of 2024. We also had to update the appendices to reflect the page wage schedule. And with that, we were able to negotiate and agree to a COLA pattern of 2% in 2022, 2.5% in 2023, and 2.5% in 2024. To be implemented on the schedule, employees are placed at the step that results in an increase. And one additional step will be awarded to those that complete 10 years of service within the term of the contract, meaning so if someone has 9 years today and they're at their 10 years completed next year, we're giving them that additional step today. But then if they were to achieve 20 years of service during the term of the contract, they would be awarded one additional step at the time of their anniversary. Okay, so those are the changes for the deputy contract. And then Commissioner Pavlik, I do have the contracts here. I'll need signatures, but I can bring those to you at the end of my stuff here. Okay. So moving on to our correction officer. I'm sorry, I probably should get a motion for that one.
Want to do them separately?
What do you think, Betsy? Should we do them separate?
We have in the past, so I think we should.
I think so too, yeah.
So we'll go back then to ratification, Local 103, deputy contract.
I'll move, Mr.
We've got
Chairman.
a motion by Jason,
Second.
second by Wayne, to approve. Any comments or questions? A lot of work on that.
Sure will.
Sounds like it.
All right, we'll call a question on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Continue.
All right. Next one I have is going on to the LELS contract for our correction officers. So again, requesting board to approve and authorize the board chair's signature to approve negotiated contract changes for this group for a 3-year period starting January 1 of this year through December 31st of 2024 as recommended by the county negotiating committee. Also seeking the same authorization for the administration director to make the appropriate 2022 budget adjustments and fund transfers. And then I also have a list, a summary of the changes to the contract that I'll review. So for this one, the sections and articles are mostly similar, but they changed a little bit. So starting out, update Article 4, Sections 1 through 5 to implement and reflect the PACE wage study and step increases to take place as of January 1 of each year. Article 6, removing the longevity article as it no longer applies to any current active employees. Article 6, this would be renumbered as well due to removing the previous section. But this is to increase the shift differential to 90 cents per hour in 2022 and to $1 per hour in 23 and 24, consistent with the deputies. Article 10, Section 8, severance pay, same thing, adding that extra tier for 35 years of service. They would be receiving 65% of their unused accrued sick leave. Article 11, Section 1, increasing that group life insurance from $10,000 to $30,000 for full-time employees. Article 11, Section 2, that's regarding the health insurance, so same thing. If you guys want me to go over the health insurance changes each time, or I can just say that it's the same as the previous. Okay. So this would be the same as the previous, as well as the deputies. Article 17, Section 2, this is also referencing to include significant other aunt and uncle to the immediate family members for purposes of funeral leave, and eliminating that 2 additional days of funeral leave for employees that have to drive over 300 miles. Article 17, Section 4, adding a new section to allow employees to use their accrued unused sick leave for the duration of the medical incapacity relating to the birth of a child in accordance with the county's leave of absence and FMLA policies. Article 22, Section 1, same thing, increasing that uniform allowance from $60 to $75 per month and to modify that due date from November 1 to December 1 of each year. Article 23, Section 1, we're adding a section to require employees, same thing with that licensing requirement, that they need to be completing when on duty if possible, or they need to get approval in order to complete on a scheduled day off. Same article, but Section 2, modifying that section to clarify when an employee is required by the sheriff to take classes outside of the county. If it's on a scheduled day, they'll get their rate of pay, but if it's held on a day off, they would get paid for the rate of overtime. Article 26, Section 1, modified to reflect a 3-year term. And then the same thing, updating the appendices to reflect the PACE wage schedule, applying that 2% COLA in 22, 2.5 in 2023, and 2.5 in 2024 with the same implementation schedule as the deputies, meaning being placed where it results in an increase, They'll be awarded one additional step for 10 years of service within the term of the contract up front in 2022, and one additional step would be awarded to those that complete 20 years of service on their anniversary. So that is the changes for corrections. We can go ahead.
Wishes of the board.
Move as well, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Second.
Jason. Second by Wayne. Any questions or discussion? People know what we were doing in here for so much.
Good work.
Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Continue.
All right, next one I have is to approve and execute our Afscme collective bargaining agreements. So requesting board to approve and authorize board chair's signature on the negotiated contract changes for Afscme Public Health and Human Services. Period of 3 years, starting January 1 of this year, ending December 31st of '24, as recommended by our county negotiating committee. Also would need that authorization for the administration director to make the appropriate 2022 budget adjustments and fund transfers. So the summary changes for our Public Health and Human Services contract is to modify to reflect that 3-year term. In Article 6, Section 5, we're increasing the call pay for child protection social workers from $1 per hour to $3 per hour. Article 7, Section 1, adding 1 additional floating holiday, so they will now be awarded 2 floating holidays per calendar year. Article 7, Section 2, we wanted to include this language as we ran into an issue, I think it was last year, with our holiday schedule. So we've done this in 2 contracts last year, now we're applying it in the other ones. To say, in all other circumstances, the holiday schedule shall be determined by the employer no later than January 31st. And that was for purposes of one year we had kind of a wonky system for our Christmas holidays. So we wanted to include this so then we could determine what the recognized holidays would be. Article 9, Section 6, we're modifying the section regarding donated sick leave. There's a lot of verbiage in there currently. With the modification, it's really just going to reference the guidelines for administering donated sick leave, which that is something that we are working on getting amended as well, and we'll be going through that with the unions as well as with the board for approval to change that. Article 9, Section 8, that's adding that additional tier for the sick leave severance package, 35 years of service, getting 65% of their unused sick leave. Article 10, Section 1, adding significant other, aunt and uncle to the immediate family members. This group did not agree to drop those 2 additional days for 300 miles, so that is still current in that contract, but we just included these 3 additional family members. I think I have that mislabeled. And this, I think that's supposed to be Article 11. I noticed that I mislabeled the article. But there was information pertaining to layoff language where there was a section in there that says for layoffs occurring during the term of 2009 through 2010 contract only, employees would be subjected to a 2-year recall. So that is no longer applicable as we are past that time frame anyways. Article 14, Sections 1 and 2, it's to implement and reflect the PACE wage study and step increases to take on January 1 of each year. So we modified that language to reflect the study. Article 15, Section 1, providing an additional $20,000 of employer-paid group life insurance. So the total would be $30,000 for them as well. Article 15, Section 2, it is referencing the insurance changes, our group health insurance, same as I presented for our LELS groups. Article 22, Section 1, reflecting that 3-year term, and then updating those appendices, as I mentioned, for LELS as well, reflecting the 2.5% COLAs, as well as the additional step awards for those individuals that reach years of service. So those are the changes for public health and human services.
All right. Wishes of the board.
Move, Mr. Chair.
We got a motion
Second.
and a second to approve as presented. Any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now down to what?
I have one more.
Yeah.
I one more and then I'm done, I promise. So this one is for our other Afscme group for the courthouse collective bargaining agreement. Same thing, we are requesting board chair's signature for the negotiated changes, as well as authorization for the admin director to make the appropriate budget adjustments and fund transfers. So summary of the changes for this contract include 3-year term. We had to do some language cleanup in Article 6 in reference to the administration director's title. It's currently listed as county coordinator, so we amended that to include administration director. Article 9, Section 1, adding an additional floating holiday, so they'll be eligible for 2 now in a calendar year. And this will be awarded in 2022 as well. I think that's important to note. Article 9, Section 2, to include that same language about the holiday schedule will be determined by the employer no later than January 31st for the same purposes. Article 11, Section 8, we're modifying the section regarding the donated sick leave, as I mentioned previously with the Public Health and Human Services contract. Article 11, Section 10, same thing, including an additional tier for 35 years of service. They would get 65% of their unused sick leave. Article 12, Section 1, adding significant other, aunt and uncle, to the list of immediate family members. Article 13, Section 3, eliminating item E for the purposes of that layoff language that was pertaining to 2009 and 2010, as it no longer applies. Article 17, Section 1, providing an additional $20,000 of employer-paid group life insurance, so the total will be brought up to $30,000. Article 17, Section 2, the same insurance presentation that we provided for the other groups. Then we have Article 19, Section 1, reflecting a 3-year term. Article 25, Sections 1 and 2, to modify that to reflect the PACE wage study and step increases to take place on January 1. Article 25, Section 4, we're modifying that section to reflect step progression to occur on January 1 of each year. Also to modify the section to reflect new hires will not be placed beyond step 3 on the wage scale. So in respects to experience credits, the union had requested to negotiate that no one would be placed beyond a step 3 moving forward. Article 26, Section 1, we're increasing their boot allowance from $200, and this only applies to a handful of people in this unit, but the boot allowance is going from $200 in a 2-year period to $275 per calendar year. And then, of course, updating those appendices, same purpose, reflecting our COLA schedule, as well as the implementation and additional step awards. And those are the changes to that one.
Wishes of the board.
Again, I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Second, I guess.
We've got a motion and a second. Any questions on this?
Thanks for all your work. I know it wasn't,
Yeah,
been a
goodness,
process
yes.
and a long,
We're happy
not
to
just
be completed.
negotiating, but with the study going on and stuff, I know it took a lot of time and a lot of work.
It took a lot of time. It was stressful.
But
But we got it done, so.
you're there, so congratulations.
4 down, 3 to go.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, one more union to go, and then we have our salaried and non-union hourly as well. Oh, that's not mine.
So anyway, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jen.
Wonderful.
Appreciate it.
And Commissioner, if I could bother you for your signatures while I'm down here, I even have them marked for you.
I might as well finish the rest of these.
Where it says county board chair. Nice one. I hope we don't get carpal tunnel today.
Seems like it some days. doesn't it?
Right. Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. Okay, continuing, we'll move on to item 3, approve America Corps Lead for America host site agreement. Anyone here for that?
Jason, did you want to? I can certainly.
If you want to speak to it a little bit, I
Sure.
can also speak to it. Jackie's online as well.
Okay.
Which is be the recipient, if approved, will be the recipient of the award, which is a big deal. It's a nationwide program that's going to benefit the county directly. We're going to do some of those items that sometimes you just don't have time to get to, and of course having Jackie is going to be a huge benefit for us for what we're looking to do and stuff. And it's technology in the technology area, not only in that, but it's going to branch out, and there's parameters that are need to be followed as per the contract and stuff. But she'll be designating a good part of her time working on the technology, ISPs. We're figuring some cell phone cell phone reception areas, and things like that. Kind of getting that kind of neatened up and. Not unsimilar to what was being done before, but she'll be able to dedicate, quite a bit more time to it. So I'm excited to see what can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
One change to note would be at the beginning of the contract, after discussion with Lead for America, they were requesting Koochiching County be the recipient and signature on this contract. As we had kind of talked, it was KTI before. KTI doesn't have the 503C status, nonprofit status, to be able to do that. So they are requesting a governmental agency to be able to do that. So
Koochiching County will now be the recipient of the award?
well, KTI will be the recipient, but care of Koochiching County. So it's just a kind of a requirement of the Lead for America program. So,
Okay.
and to move it forward, I think it's due, I believe, tomorrow. I believe, and if approved and accepted, it's not unsimilar to the previous contract that we had. It's a very similar program. It's more of a local type of deal, but this is be a nationwide event for these folks that are within this program. So, and I don't know if Jackie wants to speak, or Jim Yount, KTI chair, could also speak to it. Jim, are you available?
I am available, but I also have kids cooking in the kitchen and doing crafts and all that around me, so I got a pretty noisy work environment. But we're very excited to be moving this along. You covered all the main points I wanted to make, Jason, so I think we're in really good shape.
Thank you, Jim. Jackie, do you have anything?
I don't have a whole lot to offer other than to tell you that, sorry, I just realized that I don't have my video on. I'm excited for this fellowship to start, and the contract that you're being asked to act on really is on behalf of KTI. KTI has secured the funding, it will be funding it. So the obligation for Koochiching County is merely to be the host on behalf of KTI, and also to provide the infrastructure as far as an office space, which I will primarily be working from home.
All right.
If I may add
Yeah,
also, please, that this agreement was reviewed by our Assistant County Attorney, Molly French, and she didn't have any problems with anything in the contract.
Excellent.
Well, I'm still with the Telegraph myself, but I'm glad to see we're moving forward. Carol gets a lot of this.
This would be nice to see some of the underserved areas, maybe find some solutions for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have a dead zone right at our house, but Carol can walk in the yard either way and then pick it up again.
Well, maybe this will be addressed, huh?
All right, we would need a,
Motion to approve the agreement.
I certainly move.
we've got one, Jason.
Yeah, I'll second him, yes, that's a,
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Thank you for all the hard work, everybody. Appreciate that. All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're moving forward. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, and we got one more thing on here. Auditor Treasurer. Just the person we want to see.
Yes, hey.
You want what?
Yeah. Hey, annually, we, at the end of each year, we designate our depositories for the following year. And this year with the jail bond coming forward and going to be, paid, been looking at various places that we can invest that, and one of the places is called the Minnesota Association of Government and Investing for Counties. Now that inspires confidence. You
Yes.
should know that. Yes, but anyway, it's an organization that specializes in bonds, managing bonds, making sure the payouts are timely, looking at the amortization schedules and things like that. So this doesn't tie us directly to that, but what it does is it allows us to apply for membership, which is pretty much a given. And so I'm just asking that we approve the resolution that I apply for the membership for this organization. And should we decide to do that, we can invest the proceeds of the bonds that we have, and they provide greater interest rates. Again, it's their specialty. I've talked to several different auditors around the state about it, and they come highly recommended. Again, it's not marrying us to this. It's simply allowing us to do this if we want to. So,
And it's called the Magic Fund.
the Magic Fund,
I've
yes.
always wondered about that.
Yeah, Minnesota Association of Government Investing for Counties.
Okay.
And Minnesota, so it's based in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, by the way.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I'll make a motion on
All
that.
right, we've got a motion by Wayne, second by Jason, to adopt the resolution and do it as depository for Koochiching. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Great. And we're expecting about half of the bonding, $10 million, prior to the end of September.
Great.
So whether it goes here or somewhere else, I will keep you posted. So,
Thank you.
thank you, guys. Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. Okay, back to the regular here, financial business.
We'll go to item D, approval of warrant.
Okay, item D. Approving a warrant, Boyd.
I'll move the vote, Mr. Chair.
All right, we've got a motion
Second?
and a second. Any questions on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So then we move on to Rainey Lake property owner's request for resolution. Welcome.
Welcome.
Just
Yeah,
grab a chair anywhere here.
Yeah, we don't have enough hot seats here. I guess we can park it up here.
Thank you. What dramatic pictures then?
Yeah, isn't it exciting stuff?
Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
living through it, everybody has, I guess.
Yeah, we got kicked out of our own house. We're living in our guest cabin.
I saw the water right up on the road there,
Oh,
there near
terrible.
your driveway.
Yeah.
It's been a terrible thing for
Worst ever.
everybody. I'd like to start off, we represent the Property Owners Association. I'm sorry, pardon me.
If I could get your names, please.
Okay, my name is Dan Veilleux. It's Delllieux. And I'm accompanied by Tom Doherty and Dr. Jeff Cantor.
Welcome, John.
And first, I'd like to thank you for giving us a little bit of time. And also would like to thank the board and the leadership, and particularly the emergency management people for the job they've done on this flood. It's been
Tremendous.
They were so far ahead of the curve.
A tremendous amount of work they put in.
Yeah, and they've just done beyond what we expected. Some of us have been meeting with some of those folks every Monday, and it's been just a great relationship, and they've really done well. Representing the Property Owners Association in Rainy Lake, We currently have just under 300 members, so we represent a pretty good chunk of the tax base out on the lake. Tom is a property owner and business owner on Rainey Lake. Jeff is also a property owner. Dr. Cantor has been recently the Dean of Graduate School at Notre Dame. He's working his way towards getting out the door, so now he's just a simple professor of chemical engineering.
Right.
But more important than that, he's our primary science advisor, a member of our organization, and our big concern today is not so much what's just transpired. We can't fix that, we can't change that, and we have no control over Mother Nature. But we continue to get ourselves in this situation, and it seems to be beyond our control. And so our mission as an organization is to try to address how do we mitigate going forward? How do we deal with this continuing problem? And it seems like there might be some infrastructure things that can be done to address that. And with that, I'd like to just pass it on to Jeff to talk a little bit about some of the things we see.
Sure. Yeah, as you know, we're coming off the tail end of a 2-month-long emergency here. Just 2 days ago, we passed down through the threshold of all gates open, which now moves us into normal procedures again. This is the second event in 8 years where we've had an event that would be otherwise a once in a 100-year event. And the question that we face is, are we going to see one like that again? And if so, how can we prepare for that? And it's almost certain that we will. And no amount of rule curve engineering is going to fix that prospect. And it's important to understand why. Rainy Lake, like many of the lakes in the watershed, are formed by a restriction in the outflow. These are really rivers that have been dammed in some way, either by geology or by nature or artificially in some way, and that's what forms the lake. And in our case, and just to throw a number at it, no more, under normal conditions, without flooding, no more than 1,000 cubic meters per second can flow out of the lake. That's its limit. For the last 2 months, we've had inflows that are over that level. And it's kind of as high as 2,000 cubic meters a second. And just to give context to that, over the first 6 months of this year, we've had 10 million acre feet of water enter the lake. The lake only holds 7 million. Right? The reservoirs in California that are dried up are in the order of 1 million. What we experienced this spring would have refilled, done a nice, would not have refilled Lake Mead, but would have done a good share. So it's just so important to understand the magnitude of the water that we see. And will we see this again? Almost certainly. We see flows of over 2,000 cubic meters per second about every 10 years. And about every other year, we see flows that, if sustained, would bring the lake to a flooding level. So floods are just part of the landscape where we live. We could talk about rule curves. We could talk about all the work we put in a few years ago that were to mitigate kind of the high water events. And they're important. So water management and rule curves are important. They can make a difference of the immediate difference is a foot when they first take action in April. They can make a difference of inches later, but that effect dissipates over time. And then, like this year, there's nothing we could have done in April that would have changed anything in June. It just isn't. Now there could have been other effects regarding ice. Tom can speak to that, but the important thing that we have to realize is that the most precious resource we have in terms of flood management on the lake is the conveyance through Rainy River, and that's a threat. If we want to mitigate flooding in the future, we have to think first about protecting the conveyance through Upper Rainy River, and perhaps, if possible, enhancing the conveyance. Now, the governance for the Upper Rainy River and governance for the watershed is really a 3-tiered kind of structure. The International Joint Commission at the top, International Treaty Commissioners, U.S. and it's a presidential appointment approved by the Senate. A big deal for all of the transboundary waters between U.S. and Canada. Locally, there's the Rainy Lakes, Lake of the Woods Control Board, and then with respect to water levels, it's the Water Level Committee, for which there's some local representation, but primarily it's the Joint U.S.-Canada Commission, dominated by the technical experts in Toronto. So what we seek is for us as a community and for the help from you folks to help get the attention of the National Joint Commission and make sure we're doing all that we can to protect the conveyance on the watershed, and if possible, and with the support of the technical staff of the IJC, to enhance that conveyance. So with that, I'll turn it to Tom.
Commissioners, thank you for having us today. And what we really have is an opportunity with what's happened. What do they say with every great crisis or tragedy, there's always an opportunity. And something that we've always talked about within the association is the restriction at Rainier and how that has been changed over time. We've done some research and found some old photographs where it shows the trestle when it was first put in, and the crude blasting that was done, and the possibility that there's debris in the river that's obstructing the flow. And we also found photographs of on the Canadian side of the trestle where it was an actual trestle all the way across the point. They call it Park Point now. Now they've essentially, with the changes they've done over time, they've created a dam before the dam, and it restricts the flow. And if you look at that second photograph that we have there of the park itself, you can see, and that was taken early on, the water actually totally covered that entire area, and it prevents it from getting to the dam. And if you understand the hydrology behind the dam and to the railroad bridge, it's like a separate lake, and they can effectively almost nearly drain that forebay area, and then the dam becomes inefficient and doesn't work as efficient as it does when the lake is flooding. When it's flooding, it does reach its hydrological capacity like it did this year with the water flowing over the dam. What did we hit? Did we hit 60,000 or 50? High 50?
High 50s.
High 50s. That's 50,000 cubic feet per second. Jeff uses meters, I use feet, and I understand that. But
It's a lot.
what we've learned since 2014 when we formed is there's a lot of information contained within the Rainy Lake Convention. And the Rainy Lake Convention is what gave the IJC the authority to regulate the waters here on Rainy Lake and the other lakes in the area. And there's some really interesting language in there. The one document in particular that we like to talk about today is the guidance in seeking approval for uses, obstructions, and diversions under the Boundary Waters Treaty of 1909. In this document, this is what the IJC would do to vet and approve any kind of a project that might create an obstruction, a diversion, or any other works that is already in place, like the railroad bridge. And they would review the project, vet it, and then ultimately issue their stamp of approval. Now, when it comes to a railroad, it gets a little vague, because sometimes the railroad gets to do whatever they want, hence the term I got railroaded, right? And we saw that, I forget what year it was, when the bridge burned in Ericksburg, and they very quickly filled the river with aggregate, threw some culverts in there, and interrupted navigation and things there for a period of time. So we know how they operate. And it's known that the railroad now is in the final design and engineering phases of expanding the tracks across the Rainier Bridge there. And we're very concerned that we could see a further restriction of the flow, and we just can't have that at all. That cannot happen. We can't let it happen, no way, no how. What we'd like to see is the conveyance of that water improved underneath the bridge, and possibly we could, the railroad may agree to and understand that needs to be done. We really don't know. They don't communicate very well. We just know that this project's moving forward. They've acquired land within the community of Rainier, 2 separate parcels that they bought. We're told they're going to add 2 additional tracks leave the cantilever bridge there as well, and then have 2 additional tracks, one which would be operational right away, and the third would be for some time in the future. So is what we're asking of the board is that you pass a resolution requesting that the International Joint Commission review this project, vet it thoroughly, have public meetings, and do whatever we can to keep our foot on the gas, to, you know, not have the flow restricted and ultimately improve it in the end. And we'd be happy to help draft that letter. In that information that we gave you guys today, there is a letter there that we submitted to the IJC and the Water Levels Committee with some different things that we were asking for during the flood to help mitigate those issues. That letter was put together by our board members, and then we also retained a law firm in Fargo, North Dakota, Bismarck, the Vogel Law Firm. They have a strong background in water-related issues and diversions and different projects like that, and they assisted us with putting that letter together. But that's what we're asking of the board today, and this won't be the last time that you'll see us. We have some other things that we want to bring to the table too once more of the information becomes available on what happened, why it happened, and some of the things that could have been done to mitigate it. You know, and our goal is to, you know, you said in 2014, we don't want it to flood as bad, and we don't want it to last as long. Well, that didn't happen. You know, we had
Just the opposite.
This was a tough one. It was really tough, and but that's what we're asking for.
Hey, you're talking about that one in Ericsburg. I got called immediately and went out there. They were going to bar me. And I told them I'm the county commissioner, and they had to let me in. But they're very secretive when they have an accident. They don't want anyone knowing what's going on. So I'm sure there's some safety concerns too, but you know.
The project itself for the railroad wasn't even on the IJC or the Water Levels Committee radar until we brought it to them and told them, hey, this is going on, and we need to...
And Randy Poznak, I'm sure you've probably seen that same picture, but he had a picture of the bridge when it was built there at Rainier, and all the debris is just laying right there in a big pile, assuming it's still there, because I don't think anyone's ever done anything with it. And obviously that's got to be causing some restriction.
There's been a series of studies since about 2008 and on, a series of 3 reports on very detailed reports. They sent boats out to get the bathymetry of the whole river, upper river, and the mouth to the end of the lake towards the river. And they did some modeling and then some prospective studies about what kinds of things would improve conveyance. And the number one thing they could do is do a little bit of dredging in front of the Rainier Bridge. And that could reduce flood levels by about 8 inches.
Which would have saved a lot of people.
Right.
A lot of trouble.
Right.
Interesting. So you're looking for us to what? Write a letter?
On this document, there's a process called an order of approval that the International Joint Commission can assign to these projects.
Okay.
And what we're requesting is a letter that we help draft a letter addressed to the chairs of the Water Level Committee, asking the IJC to assert their authority on this prospective project from the Canadian National.
I'm just speaking from personal experiences over all these years, and you know, I can't tell you how much we appreciate people like you being willing to tackle this. I mean, it can't go on. I mean, I agree. Look how things have changed for whatever reason.
Out of hand.
But if we don't do something, it won't change.
No, it's got to
It's
change.
not in their best interest necessarily, but we can help them, convince them that everybody can win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are some tough messages. The county has just been, my wife and I, we're not too far down the road from Dan, and the response to spring has been just terrific. But there is a question of resilience, private, public infrastructure resilience. And, this is inevitable that we'll have another one. And it's just a question of are we prepared? Are we prepared as individual property owners, and are we prepared as a community?
So we're sleeping in our guest cabin because
Exactly.
it's 16 by 20?
14.
16 by 14, and we've got a St. Bernard, 2 cats. Jeez.
And no guests.
It's cozy. Actually, we're lucky to have, it's a log structure that didn't get hurt, so we were fortunate to have that anyway. But, and I mean, I've been, all my constituents were affected out there. I mean, it's been tough on them, I'll tell you, as you know. So. And the businesses, what a mess. So anything we can do to help, I mean, I agree with my colleagues here. Whatever you want to do will help.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, please, Dave.
I would I'm the county engineer, and I worked for Boise for a number of years too. I just caution the board, anything you change probably changes the impacts downstream. You know that. When I look at the flood in 2022, that was a river flood in 2014. To me, it was just, it all depends on how it hits, where it hits. And, there's questions about what could have been done, what wasn't done, and there'll always be the questions, but that water's got to go somewhere. So, and I know there's a lot of people that are concerned on the Canadian side that, okay, they want to open this up by Rainier. Well, that's going to have a big impact between Rainier and the dam, and probably downstream somewhat. So, and that's why I think you need somebody like the IJC that can somewhat look from it from above and try to take in all the inputs, because it is complex.
Yeah, it's complex. The dynamics go from Catacoma and Namakan all the way down to Lake of the Woods, North English River. And there's a community of Kenora on Lake of the Woods that is the largest population center. And the Lake of the Woods Property Owners Association is enormous. It's 10 times our size.
Yeah.
I mean, we just came
finding our voice in that.
We just came off a dry year, no doubt, right into this. But just like there's going to be floods, there's going to be dry years.
Yes. Sure.
I personally think they need to be more conservative when they're doing this thing. I mean, tell the people it's a dry year, it's a dry year. It's worse than a flood year. And that's me as a public, not as a county engineer. Not having to lift all these roads up and stuff. But
Thank you for that, by the way. I was still able to get to my home.
Carol and I were using our canoe, go back and forth.
we had no parking signs on there.
I saw that, yeah.
I didn't see him.
In the end, we'd like to, I mean, I know the dam at International Falls here has served its purpose, but unfortunately, when the water gets as it was, the dam comes out of play because it's really dammed up at Rainier. And so if you can mitigate that in some way and get some more conveyance through there, we put the dam back in play and then we get some control. Right now, it's once we get to a certain point with the lake, we're totally out of control. We're just at the mercy of whatever happens. And when those 30-mile-an-hour wind comes up, we got a real trouble.
Commissioner Hansen lives on the river, and he looks at it. He looks at it in the sense of, don't just let things go, or there goes our property.
Well,
how do we?
It needs to be balanced.
How do we
You
get
can't just
balance?
open it up and let it go. You know, it needs to be controlled. But
Thankfully, the river didn't get too out of hand this year.
No.
The forks
Compared to many.
once the forks dropped, and that helped immensely. And there's less back pressure below the dam.
And that was just because we didn't see the rain in the water down there. We seen it up here, but if it would have happened down there, it would have really.
Right.
well, that ice up in the river really, almost worked to our advantage the way it turned out, because it slowed the river down a little bit until it finally let loose, and at that point, it was room for it to go. So
The one thing that would have changed some of the timing a bit, which I should have mentioned, was had they used the high-risk rule curve in the spring, we feel that it would have changed the timing, so the timing would have pushed it back a little bit, and we wouldn't have seen the ice pop up and get to that level that's so critical for everybody's docks. And, you know, leaving that on the table has kind of left a bitter taste in a lot of folks because, you know, they didn't use that tool. That's what it's there for. We suggested that it be used, and there's so many other competing interests when they're in those meetings, you know, the fisheries and wildlife, and everybody's in there, and you know, this winter was severe. Just from my own boots on the ground back in the bush, they missed some of the snowpack up in the Turtle River. I'm told some of the loggers had so much snow up there they could hardly operate. And the Turtle River ended up being the nemesis. That was the one that was killing us because the inflow was so high from there. That exceeded 1950.
And the greatest percentage of that water comes from Canada. I mean, we have some from our side.
Yeah.
I always tell people most of that water is coming from north. Yeah.
If I can jump in with a quick comment.
Sure.
You can hear me? This is Jim Yunt.
Yeah,
I want to reinforce and expand on what Tom just said. I received extensive damage to my docks, which is going to require probably 2 full months of full-time labor for me to fix, and I don't know how many thousands of dollars. I'm pretty convinced from my experience in 2014 and the waybacks and all that we saw that if it weren't for that little bit of ice damage to the end of my docks at the very beginning of the flood, that my docks would have survived entirely intact. And in addition to that time, you know, that's two months of work that I'm not going to be able to spend on my business and on my volunteer activities and various things like that. So it's pretty significant. That little bit of delay could have been very substantial for me, and I'm guessing for others as well.
The last flood when we lost our dock, I built floaters. At least I can find them. I mean, they kind of drift off. That was the other thing, you know, the amount of debris that was out in the water this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's a miracle no one got hurt. And we'd still see, you know, not nearly as much boat traffic, but still, at night I would hear people, you know, cruising wide open. And I'm thinking, my gosh, because that afternoon I saw a log out there, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's the other side of it, is the danger. Yeah. Well, keep us informed, and you know, anything we can do. I mean, I'm just going to speak for myself because I experience it too. I mean, there's got to be some sort of solutions to have better control. Is what I'm looking at. We can't destroy everything down the river either, but
No.
Yeah.
if we can get ahead of things.
Well, yeah, I think the message today is really protection. We all have our issues, and there's things we can do in terms of road course and water management. A favorite topic of mine is, can we build better sensors to predict a late ice out? Because we know a late ice out is a predictor of flooding. Can we do a better job with that? But in the end, it comes down to getting the water out of the lake. And first goal has to be to protect that lands against the potential of what this railroad project could do. And if we can get better than that, that'd be even better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
I think we need a motion on this, if you'd like to ask for what the board would like to do.
Well, you don't have a specific request right now?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
Well, to write a letter requesting that the IJC and vet and review this project based on this document.
Okay.
And I think you know, we can pick the language out of there, and we'd surely, you know, I don't know if it's something that needs to be written by the county attorney, or if it's the board secretary or coordinator would do that, but we certainly would help with it, so it was worded properly, if needed.
Well, I mean, I have absolutely no problem, but we can't really approve something until, you know, we've got it on the table either for it to be official. That's what I'm getting at. But is there any objection to moving forward with this? Okay.
So would our next issue be to create a Free language for a motion?
create a document, or we have to have something we can.
To move on, yes.
Yes.
I understand.
Technically, so that we can move things.
We'll certainly support any efforts and,
Okay.
you know, and keep the public, you know, out in front of all this too. I know there's lots of questions that they have and, you know, to kind of steer it in the right direction helps a lot too.
Yeah.
So if we can get something put together, you know, we'll bring it here and we'll go to
We'll get
work.
on that right away.
I'm
Thank
happy
you.
to help with whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Work with the county attorney and.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for working on this. And, you know,
Yes.
that's what happens. Someone's got to take charge and get things moving, and
Exactly.
we appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on then. Public Health and Human Services, right? Who's in charge? There she is.
I'm in charge.
We know you're, I couldn't see you behind there.
Well, good morning.
You're kind of the adult supervision.
Yeah.
You got your bodyguard with you too. I
Yeah.
think.
So the first thing that we have is to approve the void of 2 warrants.
Move the voids, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we've got a motion by Jason, second by Wayne to approve the warrant void. Any discussion on that? Questions? Hearing none, we'll call a question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Renewal of the Decker Family Care Housing Support Agreement.
Yes, this is the same type of agreements as we did last time. It is the yearly renewal of their housing support agreement. Nothing has changed about it. These contracts come from the state, and we just kind of facilitate the signatures of them. So.
All right.
Need a motion to approve that then?
Yep.
Okay.
Got a motion by Wayne,
Second, Mr. Chairman.
second by Jason. I only have 2 names I can. But I'll be glad when we get a full house here. and
Yes.
see it's hard. Okay, anyway, back to that issue. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Then we're on to what, transportation of children?
Yep. Items 3, 4, and 5 are all of the same agreement with each of the school districts regarding transportation for kids in foster care. It lays out who's responsible for payment should a child be placed outside of their school district, and the school does not provide transportation to that area, then the county is responsible for payment of that transportation. We've not ever had that happen, but it's an agreement that is required for the schools to have it.
Move that.
We've got a motion by Jason,
Second?
second by Wayne to approve as presented. Any questions or? We'll call the question then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item 4, no.
That's all, you got all 3 of them, so.
Okay, that did them all.
I'm
Okay.
done. We'll wait for the last discussion of the day.
Do we need to approve burial?
Oh, I don't,
I know, it was my fault, I didn't put it on the agenda.
oh, yes,
But
we
I see
do,
it on
yes.
here.
We do have a burial too that we need approval for.
Move.
We've got a motion.
Second.
And a second to approve as presented. Any questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thanks, Betsy.
My fault.
Good catch. All right. Item,
Just run on to talk.
oh, he's talking about one? Okay.
Should we go on to environmental?
Yeah, we could. But we can take you first, doesn't matter.
I tell them I need help when we start back trying to do something on these roads. Okay, I have 2 items in here, and both of them are to award contracts. First item is to award project CP 2022-05.
Seal and mastic.
Oh, you wanted the, we can do the mastic first.
That was just my C1 here.
I don't know which way she had them in
It's the crack seal mastic repair.
What's first? Okay.
2022-04.
Yep.
6.
And to award it to Northwest Asphalt Maintenance. We received authorization to bid this project back in June. Project is located down on Casad 25 and 6 near Mizpah. Bids were open this last Monday on the 25th. We had a total of 4 contractors submit bids. The engineer's estimate was $279,332.65. The bidder we'd like to award it to, Northwest Asphalt and Maintenance, had a total bid of $211,661.55, or 76% of the engineer's estimate. We thought that was good. If you see the bid abstract, you can see that the bids were all over the place. Like 3 times.
Yeah.
But we had 2 bids that were very close, and these 2 companies usually alternate on which one gets it. So if I could get you guys to approve awarding that a contract.
I'll make a motion on that.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Second,
And a second to Northwest Asphalt, is that correct?
Yes.
Any questions on that? All right, hearing none, we'll call a question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries and the bid is given.
Next one I have is CP 2022-05, and this is the Casad 1 Bear River Bridge project. We did the project last year and put in 3 lines of box culverts, and then we waited till this year to pave the top, and this is the paving over the top. We wanted to let it sit for over the winter, and those culverts did a very good job, and they got really tested out this spring. Flood. So we'd like to award this to Hawkinson Construction Company. We received authorization to bid this project on April 26th. The project is just west of Little Fork, Minnesota. We opened bids on this one too on Monday the 25th. We had a total of 3 contractors submit bids on this project. The engineer's estimate was $74,891.00. We'd like to award this to Hawkinson Construction Company. Their bid was $102,057, which was, 36% over the engineer's estimate. This is a very small project, and that's why I think the bids were up. Also, right now, we don't have an asphalt plant really right in the area, so they're trucking it a little farther. We got 3 bids, like I said, Hawkinson, KGM, and Northern Paving out of Bemidji, and they were all within 14% of each other, so they were all in that range. So we'd like to just go ahead and get this project done. It was a little higher than what we like compared to the engineer's estimate, but then when you deal with these small projects, they're usually a little higher.
Just to get in, set up, and go through all.
And Hawkinson, we haven't done much work with them, but they're down doing Highway 65 for MnDOT, so they're probably trucking it from Silverdale. And and with fuel prices and stuff.
You haven't lived until you've been to Silverdale.
I'll move on this.
We've got a motion.
Second.
And a second to approve as presented. Any questions on that one? You're getting a suntan. I know you've been out there working a while.
Oh, not much. I just got out of COVID a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah.
And Trent's out this week.
Oh, gee. You're feeling good now, though, huh? Did you get real sick?
What?
Did you get real sick when you had it?
sick enough.
Yeah.
I don't want it again.
Yeah, good. But you be covered.
Thank you, guys.
Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. We are on to environmental service business. Somebody we can really pick on here. Who is this masked man? The Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, everybody, it seems like everyone Carol and I know now has had it or getting it. I don't know how we managed to avoid it, but it happens. Authorize the Environmental Service Director to engage in discussions with MPCA.
Yeah, so Lake of the Woods County sent a letter to us. They have a demolition landfill permit that expires in 2025. And the MPCA won't allow an expansion of that demolition landfill without a liner and other conditions. And so Lake of the Woods County is requesting Koochiching County to consider taking their demolition waste and placing it in our demolition landfill as an alternative to them expanding theirs at a great cost. So my request today of the board is just to ask authorization to start the discussions with MPCA about the possibility of this happening, what they would require if we did in fact take this waste, and then understand what those costs might be. If there are additional costs to the Koochiching County, would need to understand that before we could respond to Lake of the Woods County with any additional information. So I just wanted to let you know that this letter was sent, and that before we start that discussion, I wanted to make sure that you guys were on board with going ahead investigating this further.
Oh, okay, but this is just to start the ball rolling itself.
That's correct. Just to start investigating further, how this might impact our operation, our costs, and so that we can give a more a proper response to Lake of the Woods County. We can't. We need to have discussions with MPCA. We'd have to edit our permit, our existing permit that we just got approved ourselves. We have a 10-year permit. Our existing demolition landfill, our volumes are that we have enough space in our demolition landfill for the next 30 years based on our volumes. Now we add additional volume to it, and that changes that. But just to really dive into the details about how this might impact us, that's basically what I'm asking. And having that discussion with MPCA, because we'd have to, edit our permit with them. We'd have to have an amendment with the permit.
I'll make a motion to move this along.
Second. Got a motion and a second to enter discussion. And Todd Beckel and I, we were working hard on combining the two counties. They've only got 3,600 people, I think. We've got 11,700. And as it is, they're going to be looking at us on the new jail too. So I can tell you this: MPCA loves consolidation. They don't like things spread out all over. They like an area. So I would think they'd probably go along with it. But I get, like you say, we've got to look at our interests too. So.
To look at our time on it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, thank you, Matt, for bringing it. Well, any other comments? Okay, call the question then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
If anything goes wrong, we'll just blame you. Poor Matt. Gee, we got anything else?
Well, we'll have the committee of the whole.
First we got a public, anyone here for public comment? Nobody there. Any other business come before this board? Not a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Make a motion.
We've got a motion
I'll second.
and a second. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.